You are listening to the International Radio Report. Your reactions are much appreciated. Feel free to send them to radioreport@yahoo.com. That is, radioreport@yahoo.com. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, June the 16th. My name's Sheldon. I'm here with Jill. We are giving you 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio, as we do every week here on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. We have some stories from around the world for you today, and as usual, we'll have the upcoming ham radio contests and events for you towards the end of the program. So we'll get right to it. Gilles, you've got some information about a very interesting and unique annual event coming up on the BBC.
Yeah, we're starting off with two little shortwave notes here. The first one is the annual BBC Antarctic midwinter broadcast. On Friday, they have been testing frequencies, Friday, June the 14th. And so this is by Wolfgang Büchel via Glenn Hauser's World Radio I.O. group. Thanks to Wolfgang Büchel, BCDX, for confirming frequencies for the BBC Antarctic midwinter broadcast to the British Antarctic Survey staff. Overwintering there, 15 minutes tests are due on June 14th, and the broadcast will be a half-hour broadcast on June the 21st. So the test frequencies that we think are also going to be the same frequencies. So on the June the 21st, the broadcast will be from 2130 to 2200 UTC. From the United Arab Emirates transmitter 7255 from Abu Dhabi Media Al Dhabbaya site. There's the Woofferton UK site 11685 and 9585 kilohertz from Woofferton UK, of course. And the Ascension Islands transmitter site in the South Atlantic Ocean 9870, BBC owned and of course Encompass operated by on the Ascension Islands. So 7255, 11685, 9585, 9870. The Antarctic Midwinter broadcast is unlike anything else on the BBC World Service. Every year, we make the special program for just 32 listeners. The team of scientists and support staff isolated at the British Research Station in Antarctic midwinter. The program features messages from family and friends at home, as well as music requests from Antarctica. For decades, it has been part of the traditional midwinter celebration. So I guess you could look for details at encompass.tv, which is the website for Encompass Digital Media that does take care of many of the transmitter sites. So this is always fun to listen to. Every year I take the time to tune around. Some of those frequencies, I'm sure, at least on the East Coast here, should make it. 11685, 9585 look pretty good for me. So this could be a lot of fun and messages from the family. It's really kind of very festive. It's like a big party going on, and people are just, family just saying, hello to everyone down there. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it is just a small group of people, and apparently they have a really big party down there, and they wait for that broadcast. They are isolated. They can't get in or out. It is midwinter in Antarctica at that point. So probably very cold outside. Maybe some of them do go out after having a few adult beverages. They may wander out, which is not a good idea. But anyways, it is party time, though, and it's quite a special event that they wait for every year.
Yeah, probably a few headaches next day there in Antarctica. And maybe even in the families that participate that day.
That's true.
So there's a station on shortwave, which is WEWN, the status of the shortwave station, the Internal World Television Network. This is via Tony Pavic, Hope, British Columbia. So he says he contacted Glenn Tapley at WEWN, the EWTN network, and received this reply. So the English language transmitter that they used needed a new tube for the continental transmitter. It took 8 months to have one made and delivered. It failed, so back to square one. the transmitter carrying Spanish decided to fail. Parts are ordered, and hopefully we can be back on soon. I have noticed this. I do tune around the bands a lot, and of course, by heart know a lot of where and who is on the frequencies we hear every day. And, for years, 15610, it was one of the frequencies I'd listened to. Well, I wouldn't listen too much, but I would go across when tuning the 19-meter band. And I have noticed many months ago that it was missing most of the time. It came back briefly, so I guess maybe it's missing again, since they're saying that the tube has broken down. So, and the Spanish, which used to be around 12050, if I remember well, seemed to have been gone for a long time. So, having issues and having a hard time to fix them, it seems.
Yeah, that's a shortwave station that it basically is connected to a television network. So you're hearing, in many cases, the audio from the TV station transmitted over the shortwave transmitters via radio. So it's a station that is quite powerful.
Yeah.
So they do kind of stand out on the shortwave bands. But anyways, if you've been wondering where they are, that's the explanation for their shutdown, at least a temporary shutdown.
Yeah, I know of all the stations, there's a lot of stations that have different religious programming. They are Catholic. I think it's one of the only networks on shortwave that are Catholic, except maybe Vatican Radio, of course.
Right. We travel away from the planet for our next story, but radio waves are out there as well, out in space, and this signal is being picked up every hour. Radio signals from space repeats every hour, defying explanation. This is by Michael Irving from the New Atlas. The universe is awash with strange radio signals, but astronomers have now detected a really bizarre one that repeats every hour, cycling through 3 different states. While they have some idea about its origin, it can't be explained by our current understanding of physics. The signal appears in data gathered by the ASCAP radio telescope in Australia, which watches a big swath of sky at once for transient pulses. The signals seem to repeat every 53.8 minutes. Whatever it is, the signals cycle through 3 different states. Sometimes it shoots out bright flashes that last between 10 and 50 seconds and have a linear polarization, meaning the radio waves all point in the same direction. Other times, its pulses are much weaker, with a circular polarization lasting just 370 milliseconds. And sometimes the object misses its cue and stays silent. What is intriguing is how this object displays 3 distinct emission states, each with properties entirely dismissal from the other, said Dr. Manisha Kaleb, lead author of the study. The Meerkat radio telescope in South Africa played a crucial role in distinguishing between these states. If the signals didn't arise from the same point in the sky, we would not have believed it to be the same object producing these different signals. So what could be behind such a weird radio signal? Let's get it out of the way up front. It's not aliens. Probably. The most likely explanation, according to the scientists who discovered it, is that it's coming from a neutron star or a white dwarf. But it's not a neat solution, since the signal's weird properties don't fit with our understanding of the physics of those 2 kinds of objects. Neutron stars and white dwarfs are fairly similar, but with some key differences. They're both born from the deaths of bigger stars, with the original mass dictating whether you end up with a neutron star or a white dwarf. Neutron stars are known to blast radio waves out regularly, so they're a prime suspect here. It's possible that signals this varied could be produced by interactions between their strong magnetic fields and complex plasma flows. But there's a major problem. They usually spin at speeds of seconds or fractions of a second per revolution. It should be physically impossible for one to spin as slow as once every 54 minutes. White dwarfs, on the other hand, could have no problem spinning that slowly, but as the team says, we don't know of any way one could produce the radio signals we are seeing here. This isn't the first time a repeating radio signal from space has stumped scientists. Another was found a few years ago on an 18-minute loop, which should also be impossible. The new one is not only far longer, but more complex, deepening the mystery. Whether the signal is from an unusual neutron star, an elusive white dwarf pulsar, or something else entirely can only be answered with more observations. It might even prompt us to reconsider our decades-old understanding of neutron stars or white dwarfs, how they emit radio waves, and what their populations are like in our Milky Way galaxy. The research, as published, is in the Journal of Nature Astronomy. So, radio signals are out there, all kinds and shapes. They're not only the ones that play Taylor Swift songs. We don't want to hear those coming from outer space. But these weird pulses and the patterns, though, is what's most intriguing about these, that it's not a standard, consistent pattern, that they're fluctuating, is what's really got the scientists puzzled.
Yeah, because usually, there's tons of signals from outer space coming out of stars and pulsars and all sorts, but they're very simple signals. They repeat at, regular intervals that are predictable. This one is actually very different. And, no wonder you're thinking, well, what could this be? That's what we're searching, actually, when we're searching for extraterrestrial life. We're looking for patterns that are out of the ordinary, something that doesn't look like it would be made by a star or planet or something, but by some intelligent being. So that's why it makes it more intriguing. It'll be fun to see, and over time, kind of see what they think it might be, and finally, or find maybe the physics behind it, and say, "Oh, look at that! We find a whole new way of creating signals using all of these, very powerful magnetic fields of these stars, actually, that intertwine together and just have all sorts of weird patterns." But it is definitely something interesting to think about. That signals from space. When you think at it, it's very nice. And, as we are talking about space, there's something in our vicinity of space called the sun. And it is quite active, of course. Finally, the sunspot that created a lot of, the big geomagnetic storms of May 10th. It rotated back, gave us quite a few X-flares again. It's out back it rotated off the side of the sun now. So we're kind of in more quiet times. There is sunspot 3712 that might have the possibility of creating some N-class flares, but overall the sun has actually quieted down. If you haven't heard some of the signals this week that might be regular to you, like KBS World Radio, any signals that cross actually the poles, there was a solar radiation storm and a polar cap absorption, which meant any signals almost all week crossing the poles were gone. They were just not there. Now it's over, which means that things are back to normal, and we should have, if all goes well, a pretty good week of propagation. Sunspot number 124, solar flux 165, and the best way to witness propagation, to see if signals are crossing the poles, well, it's to turn on a radio and listen.
I'm Brian Penny of Brewster, Massachusetts. You're tuned to the International Radio Report. 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT, 90.3 FM in Montreal.
A 10-year-old girl makes broadcasting history as youngest radio station manager ever. This is by Eleonora Pilastro, Guinness World Records, via Radioworld. Can you believe that the youngest person to manage a radio station is only 10 years old? From the moment you meet her, it's immediately clear that Martha Sheehan is not like all the other girls her age. At 10 years and 262 days, the UK-born radio enthusiast is the youngest person to manage a radio station in history. She feels entirely at home at the studio, and despite her young age, Martha has already proven that she has talent in spades. On 11th April, the young radio manager teamed up with British radio station Fun Kids to set up a very special space station. Fun Kids is not new to record-breaking, having already achieved fun and incredible titles such as the first radio program beamed into deep space and had big plans for Martha's very first official radio station after pushing a big red button in a planetarium filled with kids. Martha was in total control of an entire on-air output. Martha had curated every detail, from the playlist to the creative concept of the space-themed station, with insatiable curiosity and enthusiasm. The radio station was launched on the morning of June 9th during a special sleepover at the National Space Centre in Leicester, UK. During the event, launched by the British Kids radio station in partnership with the museum, the 80 attending kids could discover the marvels of space, explore the secrets of gravity, and attempt to break a very special origami record. Ahead of the event, Martha proved her pro skills and took the lead on the creative lessons for the space station, immediately pulling all the adults in the team to work. Her many tasks included planning upcoming features, producing new jingles, and curating the music with dedicated playlists. Throughout the entire journey, Martha proved that she might have been young, but she already had a clear vision of her station. The young station manager went through creative meetings at the Fun Kids headquarters in London, prepared and selected the tracks, and overlooked every creative step to ensure that everything ran smoothly during the day. She also took care of the voiceover. Fundamental in her production were alien facts, intergalactic adverts, and space stories. Official adjudicator David Wilson was at the event to adjudicate Martha's milestone and present her with a well-deserved Guinness World Records certificate. I mean, at 10 years old, and she's better than me, so.
Yeah, doing it all at 10 years old. That's pretty impressive. And obviously interested in space as well, and science and technology and all of that. So kind of fun. It sounds like they had a good time at the planetarium as well, and teaching kids about all of those things at the same time. So congratulations to Martha. And at 10 years old, you kind of wonder where she'll be in another 10 or 15 years from now. Who knows what radio will be like then, but chances are she'll be a part of it.
Yeah, she'll be part of radio or something that has to do with space, that's for sure. It's really nice.
Maybe she'll have the first radio station on Mars or something by then.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Our next story, we've been talking a lot over the weeks and months about stations becoming more or less syndicated, losing a lot of local content, losing local personalities. Well, we have another story like that today. What does it mean to be local radio? This comes. This is the from the Interlochen, Michigan Public Radio by Amanda Sewell. She is the IPR music director. Years ago, when I was new to my role as music director at our station, I met with several different leaders in the field of classical radio for advice. What one person told me completely reshaped how I thought about what we could do on our classic IPR station. He said, quote, "Too many classical radio stations claim they're local, but they're all playing from the same commercial recordings. The only thing local on their station is the weather." That comment hit me between the eyes. If I listened to WQXR in New York, Classical King in Seattle, or Symphony Hall on Sirius, I could probably hear the same recording of Leonard Bernstein conducting the New York Philharmonic. Don't get me wrong, we play plenty of Bernstein's recordings too, because they're great. But what else can we do to sound local? First and foremost, we make a number of our own recordings here at IPR at the Interlochen Center for the Arts and also around northern Michigan. Every day on Classical IPR, you're likely to hear performances recorded in our Studio A at the station or at venues around the region like the Cathedral Barn at historic Barnes Park or the Corson Auditorium. These recordings feature local students, alumni, and faculty, visiting guest artists, local ensembles like the Traverse City Philharmonic. If I could choose from 50 different recordings of a Beethoven symphony to broadcast, why wouldn't I choose the one made right in our own backyard? We also make it a point to promote local classical music performances on the air and in our email newsletter. We want people to get out and hear the Traverse City Philharmonic, the Manitou Winds, and student and faculty performances. We want to be a part of the local and regional classical music community, not only by broadcasting classical music recordings, but also by encouraging people to attend concerts in person. Finally, and maybe this is stating the obvious, but we sound local because we are local. We're a part of this community, and we reflect this community on the air and at in-person events. Our Kids Commute Live event at the Dennis Museum Center last fall brought 150 children and families to experience classical music live. I've given pre-concert talks ahead of the Traverse City Philharmonic and Interlochen concerts. Our Sound Garden Project ensembles bring classical music performances to unexpected places all over northern Michigan. So yes, we do play those classic Bernstein recordings on the air because they're important, but just as importantly, we highlight our local and regional musicians and music events. Otherwise, the only thing local you hear is the weather. So true. All of these stations that have gone syndicated, they insert little brief excerpts of maybe traffic reports, maybe a bit of local news, weather reports, that sort of thing, some local ads. But content-wise, you're probably hearing at one of these syndicated stations what many people are hearing on many other stations in many other cities at exactly the same time.
It's sad because after that, they're all saying, well, we're having a hard time. The big companies that own all of these stations are saying, well, we'll have to shut down this or that because it's not, making money. And yet they don't understand that the reason they lost is because they took out what was the soul of the station, talking about local items, talking about what's happening in your city, your community, and putting something general that doesn't appeal to anyone. It's sad. So it's fun to see that a station actually does want to do something local and does want to stay on the air and help out. We hope here it could happen too a little more with the different stations that were purchased from the different companies like here, Arsenal Media in Quebec. They seem to want to make it more community-driven, more local, more, they want to have programming for us where we live, not some general stuff. So hopefully more stations will be like that.
Yeah, just as we were going to recording of the show today, another story came across the wires from Iowa, where an AM and FM station in a small town of only 1,300 people, they have fired all their local on-air personalities. Many of them have been there for 20 or 30 years, and they're going to basically a syndicated station network. And people have just reacted immediately. Their Facebook group is getting swamped. The phones at the radio station are getting swamped with phone calls from people complaining about this because they're saying their newspaper in the town was already cut to only twice a week. So if they want to hear what was going on every single day, it was the radio station that did that for them. Now that's not going to happen for them any longer. So it's a disturbing trend that we're seeing more and more of in the radio industry.
Yeah, definitely. And it's sad. It's definitely sad. And a little local news I want to add here. I know some people know him here a lot in Quebec. It was the last week pretty much of Paul Arcand on 98.5. So he said goodbye. And it was interesting. I listened to a little bit of the programming. It was emotional. He's been there for such a long time. But I was looking at pictures, and I think that, he went off for a while, not saying exactly why. And I think maybe his health is not the greatest. I think he better enjoy, retirement and just enjoy life is going to be the best thing. So we have upcoming ham radio contest, or I think it's one contest.
One contest and one event.
And
the
yes.
event is a big one, so we'll get to that in just a second. First off, though, the one contest is organized by the Union of Spanish Radio Aficionados. It is His Majesty King of Spain contest. It's 1200 Zulu, June 22nd to 1200 Zulu, June 23rd. It's an SSB contest, and the bands are all the major HF bands, 10 through 160, no work bands.
So the big one, and it happens every year, is the ARRL Field Day, 1800 Zulu June 22nd to 2100 Zulu June 23rd. Field Day is a ham radio's open house. Every June, more than 40,000 hams through North America set up temporary transmitting stations in public places to demonstrate ham radio's science, skill, and service to our communities and our nation. It combines public service, emergency preparedness, community outreach, and technical skills, all in a single event. Field Day has been an annual event since 1933 and remains the most popular event in ham radio. The objective is to contact as many stations as possible on the 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meter HF bands, as well as all bands 50 megahertz and above, and to learn to operate in abnormal situations in less than optimal conditions. Field Day is open to all amateurs in the areas covered by the ARRL RAC Field Organization and countries within IARU Region 2. DX stations residing in other regions may be contacted for credit but are not eligible to submit entries. So it's 160 through 10 meters in HF bands, no WARC bands, as well as 50 megahertz and above. Any mode supporting the Field Day exchange is allowed. So this is a big one. It's there to promote the skills of amateur radio, kind of in emergency situations. There are a set of rules. You can't operate, your standard station from your home on your home grid electricity. It has to be, like if you were operating off of an emergency or if there was a power outage, basically.
Yeah, you can check in your own town or city or community if you have an amateur radio club in your area. Chances are they're going to be doing something for Field Day, so you could go out and maybe just watch what's going on, or if you're a ham operator, you could join in and assist in maybe helping them set up for the event or tear down, what have you, and talk to members of the public who are coming by to explain amateur radio to them and what it's all about. So it's a combination. It is a contest. Their stations are working in a contest environment, but it's also a demonstration and publicity for amateur radio. So do check it out in your local area and see if you have any activities going on. That'll be coming up next weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Before we say goodbye, just want to remind you the Antarctic special broadcast that will happen on Friday, June 21st, 21:30 to 22 hours Universal Time. Frequencies 7255, 11685, 9585, and 9870 kilohertz. It'll be a lot of fun to listen to. And we are out of time.
We thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to reach us, our email address is radioreport@yahoo.com. Our program is live streamed and archived at ckut.ca, the website of CKUT Radio here in Montreal. Our Facebook group, International Radio Report, it's been a little quiet, so you may want to go and check it out if you haven't for up to now. You can certainly join the group and post any items you might like to on the page. Our YouTube channel, we have hit a milestone. Our YouTube channel has hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, and we welcome that 1,000th participant and subscriber to the channel. You can find it on YouTube, youtube.com/@IRR. And you can listen to our shows there, the current show and previous shows as well. And we have an X account at IRRCKUT where you can follow us on the X platform. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you again next week with the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
This is the BBC World Service calling Antarctica. I'm Karis Matthews, here to welcome you to the Antarctic Midwinter Broadcast, a unique programme of greetings and music for members of the British Antarctic Survey overwintering in the frozen south. As we reach our longest day in the Northern Hemisphere, you're marking the longest night of midwinter. But even though it's cold and dark, this is also a time to welcome the point when light and warmth begin their gradual return. Over the next half hour, we'll celebrate with a 37 of